Alright guys, we are on our last problem today for 10.6. So our last one is this one. We are working with a tangent here because it touches at one point here, and we are working with the secant. So again, I'm going to go ahead and refer to my graphic organizer, and I'm looking for secant and tangent. And luckily for me, like I said, I love how this graphic organizer is set up, and it already tells you what it is that I was already looking for. And so it gives me the picture, and I'm going to go ahead and use this formula. So I'm going to go ahead and do the whole thing times the whole thing, which is just whatever, it's pretty much whatever the only one variable or number you see by itself, that is this part squared, okay, equals to the whole part times only the outside. So let's go ahead and try this one out. So here we have 16 squared equals, the whole thing is x plus 8 times just the outside part, which is x. Okay. Now from here, I'm going to go ahead and put this into my calculator, and I get 256 equals, I'm going to go ahead and distribute the x. Don't forget to do it to both of them. Sometimes it's a very simple mistake to just go ahead and distribute the x to 1, and then at the very end you're going to end up finding that something went wrong, and it was just because of this tiny little mistake. So make sure you're paying close attention to all of those small details. So now go ahead, x times x is x squared, plus 8 times x is 8x. Now I'm going to go ahead and move this number over to the right side, only because I noticed that now I'm working with an x squared and an x in my equation. Whereas in the other sets of problems, I was only working with one variable, and that's why I could basically just end up with one variable on one side and a number on the right side, because I was going to get my answer that way. But in this case, if I were to move this 8x over here, then I have variable and variable on both sides, and that's just not going to get me anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract this and move it over here. So I'm left with 0 equals x squared plus 8x minus 256. Now, this actually is not, it's not going to give me perfect zeros or x values. So I'm going to have to resort back to my quadratic formula. And remember, my quadratic formula is negative b. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That is just the quadratic formula. Okay, now I don't need to look at the negative portion because I'm not going to be working with a negative answer, right? I'm not going to have a negative length, so I know it can't be a negative here. So what I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to label the parts here. Remember, my A part is what's ever in front of this letter. So this is A, this is B, and then that whole thing is C. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and fill it in here. Fill it in directly. So negative B. So B is 8. And then this is 8. A is just 1. So I'm just going to leave it alone. And C is negative 256. And then A is just 1, so I'm going to leave it by itself. Right off the bat, though, I notice that the 8 and the 2 can cancel out. I can simplify that. So this is just going to go away. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify it a little bit more. So negative 4 plus the square root of 8 squared is 64 minus negative 4 times negative 256 when I plug that into my calculator. You know what, actually what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and plug all of this into my calculator directly, and that way it does everything for me, right? I can just go ahead and plug this in. I did notice that a lot of your calculators, you're able to just go ahead and plug whatever you want directly. Just make sure you press the shift mode first. And then I'm going to be left with negative 4 plus 4 square root of 17. And then when I change this into a decimal, I'm going to get about 12.49. And that is my x. All I had to do was solve for x. You know what, actually I forgot to put the problem. No, in your textbook, it actually, or in the example that they were giving you, they wanted you to solve for the whole thing. For actually no, they only wanted you to solve for rs. In this case, it's just x. So we are actually okay here. Okay, so this equals rs, which is the same thing as x. Alright guys, so the last thing that I wanted to do was end with an exit ticket or a food for thought. And this is, I want you to go ahead and, with everything that we've learned so far, all the different theorems and the different properties and formulas, I want you to go ahead and explain the difference between a tangent segment and a secant segment. So just go ahead, and this is actually on page 573. That's the question where I actually got it from. So this is a very important vocabulary and core concept check. So make sure you go ahead and you look at those theorems that involved the tangent and then the secant. And then we're going to go ahead and end it here. And we'll go over this portion next time as an opener. Okay? All right, bye. Bye, guys.